and hello to everybody to this Global Green Growth Week session on the state of carbon pricing instruments. My name is Fenella Awan. I head the carbon pricing global practice over at the Global Green Growth Institute, or GGGI, as we are generally known. As the audience is a little bit different from just friends and family here, as we have gone a little wider on attracting visitors, let me just give you a moment to explain what and who GGGI is and the GGG Week and why we are all here. So GGGI is an international organisation. We're focused on supporting our members to move to a sustainable and inclusive green growth economic pathway. The Global Green Growth Week is the organisation's knowledge sharing event. It is arranged around our governing body's annual meeting. Its purpose is to widely share not only the work of GGGI that we're doing ourselves, but to also bring together global experts in our field of work to share their views on future direction to help inform GGGI's discussions with members on work going forward. The carbon pricing global practice within GGGI has been active in supporting our members to prepare for international carbon trading under Article 6 since 2019. Our work crosses several programs and is focused on maximising the flow of carbon finance into our recipient member countries through whichever instruments are available. So I'm particularly delighted to welcome this IETA-led session on the state of carbon instruments in the market. I look forward to coming back at the end of the session with some further reflections. For now, I would like to hand over to our Carbon Focal and DAPA programme lead for GGGI in Morocco, Nassif Safwan, to learn more about and to help you learn more about GGGI's carbon programmes. Thanks. Over to you, Nassif.
Thank you, Fenella, for this introduction, and thank you for joining. I will try to share my presentation. Okay, so I hope that you see my my screen. So my name is Nassif Safwan. So Fenella has already explained a little bit what I'm doing in the CPU unit. So I'm leading the DAPA program in Morocco, and I'm going to explain a little bit carbon pricing's Article 6 readiness report supports that GGI is providing around the world. I hope that you see my screen again. Okay, 1 second. Is it okay? Okay. So, the GGI is leading global provider in Article 6 readiness support through 3 programs. So mobilizing Article 6 trading structure, that's a program called MATS. So supporting preparedness for Article 6 corporation, what we call SPARK, and design Article 6 policy approach DAPA program, and that's the program that I'm the lead in Morocco. So in addition to that, so the carbon transaction platform is also developed by GGI, and this will facilitate transactions between members and partners, partners and governance by managing one or more carbon purchasing trust funds. So this is map that explains the projects around the world. And we have here the 3 programs that I explained. So the MATS program, the DAPA, and the SPARK. And we have here 4 countries. For the DAPA country, for the DAPA, we have 4 countries. For the MATS program, 2 countries, and also for the SPARK, 4 countries. for maximum for a budget of over $30 million funding for technical assistance. So we'll start with the first program, which is the maths program. So this program aims to support GGI members and partners to access international carbon finance, build regulatory framework and institutional capacity to increase their ambitions and go beyond the national determined contribution NDC. So GGI is currently delivering the maths program in 2 countries, Cambodia and Nepal, with funding from Swedish Energy Agency. I just maybe put in full mode. Okay. So the GGI, I cannot see the screen, sorry. Oh. Okay, so GGI maths program is supporting the host government by supporting the development of capabilities for authorization, reporting, and capacity building, and they also develop mitigation activities into carbon transactions under Article 6 by supporting also private public sector project developer to develop Article 6 and also understanding of transactional documents, also supporting in the MOPA negotiation and MOPA transactions. So the second program is the Spark program, and this program has for objective to use Article 6 cooperation to engage the private sector in this implementation. So the partner is the ICI, International Climate Initiative in Germany, and we have this program in 4 countries, Colombia, Thailand, Pakistan, and Zambia. So the program is going to is already starting this year, 2022, and for total duration of 5 years. So of course, this program is aiming to build capacity in country and also to develop pilot projects, at least 8 pilot projects that are going to be developed in these countries. The budget of this project is around $22.5 million, and as our supporting partners, so we have carbon limits and UN and communal credits and GFA. Yeah, so this program is with 5 partners, 8 pilot projects, and this is new projects for GGI. So the DAPA program, it's called Design Article 6 Policy Approach. So this is a program funded by the Norwegian government, and this is a program that is running in 4 countries, so Vietnam, Morocco, Senegal, and Indonesia. So the program started in 2019, and different state of implementation for in each country. So
différents niveaux.
Sorry. Do you hear me?
Just keep going, Nassif. I think someone accidentally opened their microphone. That was
okay. So to complete the 8-month transaction based on policy approaches, so we have the program that starts in 2019, and for each country we have selected 4 countries for initial list of 8 countries. After that, we have a letter of intent signed by the 4 interested countries to be part of the program. And the point is to select 2 policy approaches that are going to be selected for the design phase. So we are now, for example, in Morocco in the final selection. So we select the policy that is going to be transacted between the country and Norway. So the next steps that will be for the countries is to sign an MOU or term sheet, and after that we are going to go for the MOPA sign, mitigation outcome purchase agreement and transaction signing. So just briefly, what DAPA program is supporting. So we are supporting policy approach from design until validation. We assist also in MRV, institution arrangement, governance, and also training, support training to the government regarding governance and MOPA, help them how to negotiate the MOPA contracts, and also engagement of buyers and seller. And this is the main outcomes of the program. So here, just regarding the benefits for the government. So of course, the program is going to generate revenue to comply with the NDC. We are helping to establish a policy that is going to increase ambition, and that is going to help Morocco in their conditional targets. We also have the government to have centralized management to avoid double counting, and also to have know-how on carbon project design. So through all the technical assistance provided under this program. So for the private sector, compared to the CDM, for example, here in this, under this program, we are developing a policy approach, and that is going to be developed under this program, and the private sector will directly benefit from the project that are under the scope of the policy, which means that reduction of cost for the private sector, and also good benefit for the private sector for any project design, validation, verification, and also or administrative costs. So final thing that's going to highlight regarding the carbon is the carbon transaction platform that is developed by GGI, or CTP. So what is the CTP? So it's the mechanism that will allow GGI to expand its support. So the point is to facilitate transaction between members, mainly seller and buyer countries, and the GGI will be like the trustee of these two partners in order to simplify the process, and also to provide equal opportunities for sellers and buyers in order to develop concrete programs. So this is the situation that maybe simplify things. So the current situation is that GGI is providing technical assistance to the seller country in order to develop the policy approach or to develop the project. So after that, the country will generate ITMOs and get payment from the purchaser. So this is the initial situation. So under the CTP, the new situation will be GGI placement as a technical provider and also trustee, and the seller is going to receive technical assistance from GGI, and also the money that is going to be received by the purchaser through the flow of ITMOs. So this is briefly what GGI is doing. So through the 3 programs, one of them is focused on policy approach, one for capacity building NDC, and pilot projects through the Spark, and also the MATS with also encouraging ambition through to projects. So all these projects are also encouraging the private sector, so 3 of them, and also the CTP is helping countries to facilitate the flow of technical assistance, and also the ITMO transactions to be more simplified for both parties. So thank you very much. I will handle the floor to Andrea Bonzani, that is going to explain the point of the session and also explain next steps. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Nassif. Thank you, Fenella. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Andrea Bonzani, International Policy Director at AITA, and I'm co-hosting this session together with GGGI. And it's great for AITA to partner with GGGI for this occasion and jointly share our knowledge on carbon market and Article 6. Before presenting the speakers and moving on with the session, I'm going to run through slides presenting AITA and presenting our business-to-business capacity building initiative, the Business Partnerships for Market Implementation. So I hope you can now see my slides in slideshow mode. Please let me know if that's not the case. So AITA, for those who don't know who we are, International Emission Trading Association, we are a membership organization comprised of over 270 businesses that decide to be a member of AITA to support our initiatives and our work. We pride ourselves to be the voice of the private sector on carbon markets globally. We have a presence from UN negotiations on climate change and markets to policy development at national level worldwide. And we also have partnerships with the UNFCCC, the World Bank, other regional multilateral development banks, the OECD, the IEA, and various organizations. Here we have the logos of our members. Our membership is growing fast, and my colleagues have an increasingly difficult job in fitting all the logos of our members in the slides. But this really shows, well, of course, the quality of the work we're doing, but more so the strong interest in carbon market that we're seeing in the private sector and the significant growth over the last few years. So as I said, we have a special initiative looking at industry-to-industry dialogue and capacity building on carbon markets. It's called Business Partnership for Market Implementation, or BPMI, and it was launched this year, and it aims at being the private sector counterpart of the World Bank's PMI, the bank's Partnership for Market Implementation. So business-to-business engagements, we support the private sectors in countries that are setting up a carbon pricing mechanism, and these range from carbon taxes to domestic ETSs to Article 6, as well as ways to leverage the voluntary carbon markets to benefit countries towards the NDCs and their finance goals. So we are looking to create synergies with the World Bank program, and we work very closely with them. This has been the case with the predecessor programs, the BPMR, which was between 2012 and 2019, supporting the World Bank's PMR. And during the life of that program, we engaged in various PMR participating countries, primarily China and Korea, the two countries that over the last decade implemented a fully fledged compliance emission trading systems. But we also had missions in Kazakhstan, Mexico, and South Africa. So, well, AITA's potential stems from its more than 20 years of history as a markets champion for the private sector, our large and diverse memberships, and our policy engagement work that we have been doing worldwide. The approach of the BPMI will be focused on workshop, 1 or 2 day or 2 day workshop and networking sessions between AITA members, local businesses, and the local governments. But we also want to deliver a digital library of webinars, publication, and audiovisuals. Here you have the topics that we would like to address in the BPMI initiative, effectively all aspects that the private sector needs to be aware of when carbon pricing mechanism is established. As I said, we launched earlier this year, and we've already started operation in our target countries. We had 2 workshops, one in Mexico at the beginning of September and one in Brazil last week. We plan to continue on this path and expand our reach to a larger number of countries, as well as going deeper into the engagement in our target countries. Overall, we aim at delivering better design and performance of emission trading systems and carbon pricing regimes, promote commonality of design features and a focus on linking of mechanisms, also through the use of Article 6 cooperative approaches. And of course, we aim to improve the understanding of the direction PMI countries are taking in carbon markets. So that was my introduction to AITA and the BPMI initiative. And now I'll move on introducing the speakers in this session. This session will explore the state of carbon pricing instruments worldwide. We are, of course, at a momentous time for carbon markets. We've had the landmark agreement on Article 6 last year in Glasgow. But even beyond Article 6, we now have 28 carbon pricing instruments operating worldwide, and several more that are being developed and are scheduled for implementation soon. This session will review this landscape with a very good lineup of experts from both the private and the public sectors, and we will try and review the interaction between this complex ecosystem of domestic and carbon pricing regimes. So the session will be structured in two parts. We will first have two presentations by Mireia Villaplana, who's Director of Climate Policy, Finance and Carbon Market at South Pole, one of the largest carbon credit developer and consultants. Mireia manages several multi-year and multi-million programs in the Southern Mediterranean and in Egypt. She's now based in London, but she has a long experience with South Pole in Thailand as well. The next presenter would be Malik Al-Chalabi, a Senior Carbon Pricing Advisor for Shell. Malik will bring his diverse experience at Shell, where he held roles in strategy, health and safety and operation in the UK, the Netherlands, Iraq, and the UAE. Malik also completed a PhD from the University of Oxford, where he researched, taught, and published on energy transitions. The first two presentations will be facilitated by Fenella, and then we will move to a panel discussion where panelists will react on the presentation and share their insights. The panel will be moderated by Lisa DeMarco, who's Senior Partner and CEO at Resilient LLP, law firm based in Canada. Lisa is a global expert on energy and climate law, and she sits on the board of various organizations, but the most important of them is, at least for me, AITA. She's the chair of the Council of the International Emissions Trading Association. The panelists will be Mr. Abdelghani Boucham, head of the Climate Change Department at the Ministry of Energy and Sustainable Development of Morocco. And among other things, Mr. Boucham is a coordinator of Morocco's national greenhouse gas inventory system and has been country manager for Morocco for the PMR program of the World Bank. Second panelist would be Jeff Swartz, Vice President for Low Carbon Strategy, Regulatory Affairs and Partnership at BP Trading and Shipping. Jeff joined BP in 2020, and prior to that, he held roles at South Pole, AITA, Evolution Markets, and the US State Department. Next, we will have Usman Falsar, coordinator of the West African Alliance on Carbon Markets and Climate Finance. Mr. Sar has been involved in international negotiation on climate change since 2005. He has been president of the National Committee on Climate Change of Senegal between 2011 and 2020, And amongst his various affiliation and appointments, he's a member of the steering committee of the World Bank's Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition, one of the founding members of the Foundation for Carbon Market Fairness, and he's involved in the piloting of ITMO transactions between Senegal and Switzerland. Then we will have Madeleine Diouf-Sarr, head of the Climate Change Department of the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development of Senegal, and chair of the LDC negotiating group within the UNFCCC. Beyond her work within the UNFCCC, Ms. Diouf-Sarr has several years of experience managing and coordinated climate change projects and programs in Senegal. So that was perhaps a long introduction, but it was needed to set the scene. So I will hand over to colleagues at GGGI to facilitate the next section of the event. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea, for the presentation of IETA, and also for presentation of the panelists and the speakers. So I will hand the floor to Mrs. Maria Villaplana to speak about facilitating cooperation and accelerating transformation to a net zero through carbon markets. I hope this is the good title. Yeah.
Thank you, Nassif, and I hope that you can see my slides now, sharing slide mode as well, like Aita, Andrea said. I hope that you can see them. Let me know if not. Thank you, GGI and Aita, for the invitation. We are very happy to be able to provide an overview of our experience in carbon pricing approaches, specifically those that use market mechanisms like Article 6, and also to provide our experience with one of the projects that we have in Thailand, as it has been mentioned, the SHIFT program. This is a bilateral cooperation between the governments of Switzerland and Thailand, focused on mobilizing climate finance for e-mobility at scale. For those of you that do not know about South Pole, even though that we have been already introduced, let me just tell you that we are a global climate solutions provider and project developer that works with public and private sector clients to establish and achieve ambitious climate change targets and to unlock climate finance at scale. We're spread in different countries through our 30 offices already and more than 1,000 employees. And we have been in the market, as Andrea mentioned, for 15 years now. This slide provides an overview of how South Pole has been actively engaged in the design of Article 6 mitigation activities. We're in a unique position to do so, not only for our experience as a project developer, but also because we have dedicated teams that can really target this topic at length. This helps us support our clients, mainly governments, but increasingly more private sector at the moment, to understand in particular how to be Article 6 ready and to navigate this dynamic and developing environment, as Andrea mentioned. We all agree that Article 6 is an important vehicle for countries to voluntarily cooperate with each other to achieve their climate change commitments and targets set in their NDCs, and to even explore going beyond their own pledges. And there is no doubt that this market has a very promising potential. In the slide, you can see a quick summary of the projects that we have been doing in the past years or that we are currently involved into. Those marked in dark blue and gray are assignments that we are involved in designing Article 6 mitigation activities, and that's mainly done through call for proposals that Article 6 organizations that are on the lead, like Click Foundation, the Swedish Energy Agency, you have heard all those organizations through Nassif in the presentation, have been developing. But even also countries like Singapore that are on the front run when it comes to wanting to or showing interest into engaging in that cooperation and buying ITMOs for their carbon tax purposes as well. And those assignments in light blue, where we work more with governments directly to prepare them for Article 6. As I mentioned, being Article 6 ready is a must for most of those countries. And it also allows us to understand better the capacity needs that those countries need and have, and also how ready they are to cooperate between each other as well. We are particularly excited to be working with GGGI in Cambodia with one project at the moment, as well, as you can see in the map. But this is a quick summary of our work under Article 6. And before even getting into more detail into presenting the Thailand Shift program, I would like to reiterate the fact that Article 6 is a market enabler, and we believe that will become the most central and stable carbon market for its global scope and size, and will increase and will help increase as well NDC's ambitions. So that's very important for countries too. As of now, we know that this space is dominated by public actors like we have mentioned, Switzerland, Sweden, Singapore, that have taken that early action. But it doesn't mean that other countries can really continue and just follow the lead for now. We have seen that these countries have already achieved several agreements, bilateral agreements between other countries. Switzerland has signed 8 agreements with Peru, Ghana, Senegal. You probably have heard during this during today's presentations with GGI how many agreements have been signed. Joint declarations as well with Chile, Malawi, Morocco, and Uruguay, which means that there's interest of those countries on engaging with Switzerland. Singapore has signed with 4 other countries, Colombia, Morocco, Thailand, and Vietnam, and also Sweden with Ghana, Dominican Republic, and Nepal. So now that Article 6 has been agreed, governments will have to develop plans, processes, and put instruments in place to attract this extra investment that Article 6 provides. And this requires times and adjustments. We are fully aware of that, but that's why early efforts were key and are still very valuable, we believed. Now, moving into explaining you or giving you a quick overview of what we did in Thailand and what is that SHIFT program in Thailand. This is an activity that we started designing on the basis of using transformative carbon finance to accelerate Southeast Asia's energy transformation. How? By financing the convergence of e-mobility, storage, and also variable renewable energy generation. We started this project back in 2018, so that's quite a long time ago, but we have been quite successful, and we would like to present it to all of you. When we were exploring this concept that I mentioned on e-mobility to suggest to Switzerland, because we heard that Switzerland announced their intention to use foreign carbon credits to offset an average of 10% of Swiss GHG emissions between 2021 and 2030. At that same time, Thailand also in their NDC clearly stated that they wanted to cooperate and they wanted to use market-based mechanisms like Article 6. So that was really the basis for us to really say that we could really put that forward. Before the Click Foundation that you're going to hear, and probably you have even heard some of their presentations within today, there was a sister company of Click Foundation that was called Climate Sen Foundation, as you can see in the logo. That was the one that was mandated back then in that period of time that I'm mentioning up until 2019, and was appointed with 20 million Swiss francs in order to get or in order to use international carbon credits towards their towards financing pilot activities under Article 6. This is how all started and how South Pole got involved by developing that SHIFT project to promote the adoption of e-mobility for logistics services. That's how it all started. It will really turn a bit, but you will see how I would really how this shift happen. The main role that we had back then was was during the designing phase of the project, and was to engage with the stakeholders, because back then we needed to explain a lot, mainly government officials within the Thai government, to get their interest, to understand what we were trying to do. That was already a hard task because Article 6 sounded still quite far away. As of like now it's being approved, and it was approved at COP26, but back then, 2018, as I mentioned, it did sound still like a bit idealistic, I would say. But also we needed to develop the business model. We needed to really bring and calculate the emission reductions that was linked to that project and have an action plan to move that to operationalization. Design phase is very important, and it's what like governments are needing and are needing to understand, but we need to really move it to that action that we need as well. So during that time when we were working on that design phase in 2019, we identified a key project partner in the space of electric mobility in Thailand that wanted to bring electric buses into the whole picture. So that shifted a bit the priorities, and we changed the project conceptualization to include the e-buses in order to ensure scalability as well. You can see here in this photo how this turned into the Shift e-bus program that you might like have heard of. And finding this key partner, Energy Absolute, was that was willing to explore that was crucial and key. And you can see one of their buses like in the photo as well. Key stakeholders involved, I've mentioned them, most of them, but I really wanted to really give it to all the participants like that overview. Click Foundation is now the ones that took over from Climate Sen Foundation back in 2020 when they started their mandate, or they were mandated by the Swiss government to explore Article 6 and to source all those Article 6 credits as well internationally, those ITMOs. From the Thai government, we have ONEP, that is the Office of Natural Resources and Environmental Policy, that at the same time was mandated to oversee all Article 6 related activities, which also works quite closely with another logo that you see at the right side, that it's TGO. That's the Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization. They have been mandated by the Ministry of Environment to oversee everything that it's linked to implementation of carbon markets domestically, but also internationally. So they are a key partner as well. But there are other ministries that I haven't really placed here, which are the Department of Land and Transport and the Office of Transport and Traffic Policy and Planning, the Ministry of Energy. So it gets a bit more cumbersome when really we include several ministries at the same time. Last but not least, there's the Energy Absolute partner, that is the bus manufacturer and project owner, and the Thai Smile Bus, which is the bus operator. In this particular case, South Pole is the carbon partner designing the program, but also providing support to Energy Absolute in the operationalization of the program, and to the governments, both Switzerland and Thailand, in all topics linked to climate policy and carbon market development. It's a full slide, but I just wanted to give the participants to the webinar an idea of timelines, an idea of how the process from the Switzerland side works. And that has been refined with time. Remember that I told you that we engaged, or we started like wanting to develop this project back in 2018, but then Click Foundation refined their process to give the signal that they were very clear and serious on what they were expecting to receive. So as you can see, as the main starting point, you need to submit any activity or any idea that you may have, a mitigating activity as a first step. This step already includes that you need to bring what they call a letter of interest from the transferring country. In this particular case would be Thailand. So we needed just to get Thailand's somehow interest and buy-in into the whole idea and project. And that's why it was so important for us to engage early on with like a lot of ministries and explain them what we were trying to do. Once this activity is being selected by CLIC, then they ask you to really develop a mitigation activity design document. You have heard about that with Nassif as well. And this is it's the typical design documents that that we have back then in the CDM PDDs. It's the same. And these might take a year, most likely. And this needs to include that business model that I was mentioning and the cash flow, so that like it shows the CLIC Foundation why this activity needs that climate finance. If this is all going well and it's approved by CLIC, this needs to be first being validated as well by a third-party validator. This is what you see in that third step. And I put like the logo of SGS because this is what has happened as of now in the Thai Shift program. We have validated the MAT and we have submitted it to the Switzerland government, the Thai government as well, and to CLIC. So it's now back then. You can see also that the bus like has gone a bit farther, and that's because like the mitigation activity program purchase agreement, apologies for that, has been already signed as well. And that's something that has been signed between CLIC and the project partner. So this is where we are. We have really followed all the steps of what CLIC and the Swiss government suggests, but like above, you can really see also that I've put that bilateral agreement negotiations. When you send to Switzerland that letter of interest from the transferring countries, Switzerland government starts discussions, bilateral discussions with the transferring country to somehow initiate these bilateral discussions that should end up into a bilateral agreement. This is where we are now. And as you can see here from this picture and the smiley faces, we achieved having that bilateral agreement between Switzerland and Thailand. And the agreement was signed in Bern on the 23rd of June. It was a great milestone for both countries, Switzerland and Thailand. I also wanted to show a few particularities of the program, if I have the chance, very quickly. SHIFT uses carbon finance to bring down the incremental costs of at purchase. So additional incentives are very necessary for bus operators in this particular case to procure electric vehicles, electric buses, instead of the internal combustion engines as well, buses. So carbon finance is used to bridge that gap between the capital cost and of an e-vehicle from a capital cost of an ICE vehicle. Another particularity of this program is that it will be registered under a domestic scheme that it's called the Thailand Voluntary Emission Reduction Program. This standard was developed by TGO, if you remember, are the ones appointed by the Thai government to oversee all domestic and international carbon markets programs. And it implies that all projects participating in this TBER scheme must reduce their GHG emissions within Thailand jurisdiction, but emission reductions from authorized projects like this one, in particular, can be transferred bilaterally as well. They use two methodologies for that, felt switch and model shift. This is going too much into detail, so I don't really want to go farther on that. But maybe one important point that I would like to tell the audience is that during this year, and at the same time that the bilateral agreement was being signed, both sides, Switzerland and Thailand, issued new regulations and processes that we needed just to take a closer look at. In the case of Switzerland, they published in June the process on acceptance and validation of projects and programs that are being developed abroad, outside Switzerland. So that was key for us to kind of like revise that regulation and ensure that we were following all the steps and we were not leaving anything behind. At the same time, Thailand also provided a guidance and management mechanism of carbon credits that was published in May as well. So you can see how these activities also trigger new processes and regulations being in place. It was good to know. It was more work for us because we needed to integrate all that during July and September before the activity was being validated, as I mentioned. And you may recall that you may wonder whether if after all this time, we have like any lessons learned? Absolutely, we do. And we encourage early action, as I mentioned. And this is something that like South Pole actually did. We believe that this is key. Early action is key for that Article 6 fast pace that Andrea was mentioning as well. And it's also important that governments, now that Article 6 has been approved in Glasgow, that governments provide the right signal and start like working into putting governance in place and processes, as I mentioned, in order to send the right signal to the private sector and to engage in that voluntary cooperation between countries. Maybe for South Pole, what I would like to finish with my presentation is that when this opportunity presented, it ticked all the boxes to deep dive and explore it. It was the perfect case for us to help support our clients exploring cooperation under Article 6 and help also unlock access to carbon finance for an economic sector like the transport sector that is responsible for 25% of the global emissions. So saying that this might be the first Article 6 transaction is also very exciting for us and puts all the hard work that we have done in the past years in a very great place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria, for this excellent presentation. So very interesting portfolio program under Article 6 in many countries, Peru, Colombia, Vietnam, Singapore, Morocco, and also a program also with VGI in Cambodia. And you also highlight the role of leading countries and early movers like Switzerland, Singapore, Sweden in the activities related to Article 6. And also the Swiss Thai Arctic 6 Shift project, very interesting project, and also your important role in this program, and also the Thailand voluntary emission reduction program. So yeah, thank you for all this information, very interesting. However, we are like 10 minutes behind the schedule, so I will give the floor to Mr. Malik Ashalabi. I hope that he will be brief in order to let some time for the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Nassif. When would you like me to stop it, or at what point? Or how much time have I got?
Like, I think if you can wrap up in 10 minutes, that will leave sufficient time for discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, no, very good. Thanks, thanks, Nassif. Thanks, Andrea. So thanks to GGCI and to AITA for hosting this event and for the invitation. It's a pleasure to speak today and to kick off the discussion. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Malik, and I'm a senior advisor for climate and carbon policy and advocacy at Shell. And what I'm hoping to do today is to really build off the comments earlier and build from Maria's presentation at the South Pole. You know, Maria's experience is really trendsetting, you know, and it's really at the forefront of what's happening. And so what I'm hoping to do today, given the panel discussion, given the panelists that we have from government, from the private sector, from alliances and others, is to really, you know, provide a narrative of what we're seeing and hopefully, you know, kick off a broader discussion. As background, you know, we welcome the outcomes from COP26, recognizing COP27 is in a couple of weeks. And, you know, in particular, you know, we welcome the increased ambition to achieve 1.5 degrees, while recognizing that more needs to be done, particularly in this decade. The focus on decarbonizing high-emitting sectors such as aviation, shipping, and heavy industry, and enhanced coordination between governments, institutions, and businesses to make progress. The large number of countries that have signed up to the Global Methane Pledge, since we recognize the critical importance of tackling methane emissions, and recognize the link of global biodiversity and the climate crisis and the role that nature can play. A recognition of the importance of a just transition, including the need to extend the economic and social benefits of sustainable energy to everyone, and supporting workers and communities in a fair and inclusive way. And also the completion of the Article 6 rules to ensure robust accounting and unlock the potential for trade and for investments, including in nature-based solutions and CCS removals, helping to achieve net zero emissions. And so we see our Power Progressing strategy as supporting the COP26 Glasgow Climate Pact and recognize the importance of countries, businesses, and society working together to make progress on meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement through a just transition. And here we're focusing on the Paris Rulebook and Article 6. And the potential benefits of cooperation in achieving the NDCs using Article 6 are large for all parties. Potential cost reductions over independent implementation of countries' NDCs totals more than 300 billion per year in 2030. And since the agreement in Glasgow, there has been increased interest in the use of Article 6 to support cooperative approaches to help countries and sectors decarbonize. And over half of the countries signaled in their first updated NDC that they will use or might use international markets to meet their NDC. And so in order to maximize the impact and use of Article 6, AITA's International Working Group, which I co-chair, has published a discussion paper on this very subject titled How Governments Can Implement NDCs Cooperatively and Encourage Private Sector Investment. And AITA has identified the following elements that governments could consider to address and to mobilize private sector resources and investment towards Article 6 mechanisms. And the hope in this discussion paper is that by articulating these elements, it can help advance the use of Article 6 across relevant stakeholders, and also put it today for discussion to see how the panel might react to such a proposal. The paper has 8-9 points, but for today's discussion, really want to just focus on 5 of them, and very much welcome the reflections from the panel in terms of their thoughts. It includes, but is not limited to, how Article 6 will help achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement, announce whether the country intends to make use of Article 6 as a seller or a buyer, provide a clear strategy and guidelines on which sectors, projects, and vintages will be eligible, ensure a suitable infrastructure for GHG accounting and reporting is in place, and additionally elaborate a policy framework in the host country and how it will interact with the receiving country. There's other elements that are outlined in the paper, but for the conversation today, really welcome reflections from other speakers on this. The main conclusion that we try and draw in the paper is that the private sector will require a voice at the table to share areas where opportunities can be explored and where attention exists, especially in the light of the need of private sector financing to achieve NDC goals. Mechanisms that allow for businesses to illustrate these points through a consultation process would allow all parties to progress forward on areas which need capacity building. And over time, these insights can be shared with relevant communities to assist decarbonization efforts. And the final reflection I have is what I really liked about Mireille's presentation from the South Pole is that it really showed how that can be put in practice when you have 2 countries that have agreed to an agreement, agreed which sector, and agreed how to develop those registries. And what we're hoping that this paper can do is to illustrate some of the key points that we're seeing at AITA from a private sector perspective in terms of ingredients needed to operationalize the paper. And I see Andreas put it in the chat box. It's on the AITA website. It's translated in different languages in the hope that it can be cascaded across the carbon trading community. And really what we're hoping to do today, myself and Mireille, is really show the different spectrum of the Article 6 discussions, and really hope that sets off the discussion with the panelists. And so I've shrunk my points, hopefully to try and keep the time. But those were the main points that we wanted to bring out today, and really welcome the reflections from the other panelists. I hand back over to the chair, and thank you all very much for your time and your contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malek Shalabi, for this very important insights. Yeah, I think that this could be discussed under the panel. So very good topic to be discussed. So lately you highlight the role of Article 6 in decarbonization of efforts, and also maximize impacts through the discussion paper. And I think that Andrea has also shared the link to the chat for for the discussion paper. And we show the role of the Article 6 to achieve Paris Agreement targets, have clear strategies, the sectors, JG accounting, private sector role in the whole picture. So all this is a very important topic that could be for interest for the panel discussion. In order not to lose time and to give enough time for the panel discussion, so I give the floor to Mrs. Lisa DiMarco, CEO Resilient LP and Chair EATAT for the panel discussion. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. We've got a great panel to actually discuss what you've learned. First of all, let me thank Malik and Maria for such thorough presentations. And I'll ask the panel to turn on their cameras and let's walk through and first look at, we've heard a lot about what exists, but what do we need to do? Where are the gaps? So I'm wondering if we can start possibly with Usman. Andrea, you'll help me scroll through. Usman, do you want to start and give us your thoughts on what's been said by Maria and Malik and where are the gaps that we really need to fill urgently in order to accelerate ambition and increase integrity and get Article 6 emission reductions and removals in place as quickly as possible? Usman, do you want to comment first?
Yes, no problem. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Usman Falsar. You hear me very well? Exact. Thank you. Coordinator of the West African Alliance on Carbon Markets and Climate Finance. Just for your information, our alliance has been created in 2016 and we are 16 members of West Africa who are affiliated to this alliance. That is a kind of framework where we will promote active participation of our sub-region on markets and facilitating access to finance for NDC implementation for our respective countries. So far, we managed to have most of our countries that have already stated in the NDC that they are willing to use markets. And some countries like Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire are just started the process of identifying carbon pricing instruments to put in place and also to try to find how they can combine this carbon pricing instrument and market mechanism. And countries, as mentioned in South Pole presentation, we have Senegal and Ghana who have already engaged on bilateral agreement for IMO transaction, and we have growing interest for voluntary carbon markets. So this is to tell you that there is a willingness in our sub-region to take advantage of these opportunities relative to carbon pricing and carbon markets and facilitate the implementation of our respective NDCs. But for the sake of time, I will just focus my intervention on the key challenges that we have to deal with if we want to take advantage of carbon markets and mobilize additional financing for our countries in order to facilitate the implementation of the NDCs. The first issue that we need to address is capacity building and awareness raising for our key stakeholders in the countries, because we have a huge gap in terms of local expertise, in terms of having the capacity to develop projects for carbon markets, and also a better understanding of some key issues like baseline additionalities and all these issues, corresponding adjustments that need to be taken into consideration when it comes to take advantage of Article 6. And in terms of also institutional framework to put in place in host countries, so we need a lot of capacity building and we need a lot of support to be able to do that. And also to have a clear strategy for Article 6 in our respective countries, because we have already stated in most of our countries that we will take advantage of this opportunity offered by the Article 6 in terms of markets, but the first step will be at a political level to have a clear strategy so that all the issues relative to double counting or environmental integrity will be taken into consideration and avoid overselling of CR in all these issues. So in terms of readiness for Article 6, we do need capacity building, we do need support, and it is the occasion to really thank GGGI for the support they have already started for some countries like Senegal, like other countries in the sub-region where we have this process on assisting countries to elaborate their Article 6 strategies or to identify potential projects that can be implemented and that can be financed by institutional international institutions. That is the first thing, the readiness issue and the capacity building and awareness issue. The second most important issue is the access to finance for investment, and mainly for the private sector. We have a huge potential of projects, renewable energy project, energy efficiency project, but the upfront financing most of the time matters for this kind of actors. And we do need some possibilities, some vehicles, financing vehicles that can be put in place to facilitate the implementation of the project and the generation of carbon credits. And the third issue I wanted to say, to put the stress on, is the price for carbon. We have already started engaging some bilateral agreements, some cooperation, developing carbon projects, but we need to have a fair price for carbon that can incentivize enough the investment from the private sector. And I think this is a real issue that we need to put on the table and to address. We have had this opportunity within the West African Alliance on Carbon Markets and Climate Finance to organize before the adoption of the Paris Agreement, the Article 6 rulebook. We have organized several roundtables where we managed to have all buying countries and selling countries, if we can say that, countries from West Africa, East Africa, and countries from developed the Big North. And we were trying to discuss about this issue, how transaction could be done in the future, and what would be the main issues that we need to put on the table. And I think setting a fair price for carbon is something that needs to be taken into consideration and addressed in a very important manner. The last but not least is the issue of regulatory framework that can be that we need to put in place in our respective countries in order to have the appropriate governance system that can allow the delivery of the authorization, the revenue sharing, and also to put up in place all the infrastructures that we need in order to ensure clear transparency of the process. So in a nutshell, this is what I see as main gaps in countries like West Africa. And I think it's slightly the same in East Africa, because we are closely working with the East African Alliance on Carbon Market and Climate Finance. And we jointly do this kind of assessment. And this is in a nutshell the main gaps and challenges we are facing in our sub-regions. Just to start the discussion, and I come deeper later on. Thank you, Lisa, for this opportunity.
Merci beaucoup, and thank you so much, Usman. And we'll move on, but I see a number of questions are coming in through the Q&A. We will get to them once we get through our panel. Some very good questions coming up, and merci beaucoup encore. Thank you again. Next, I'm going to go to Mr. Abdelrani Boucham, who's from Morocco. Mr. Abdelrani, do you want to comment briefly on the gaps and where you think we need to go in the very short term?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be with you here. And Yes, I will join my voice to Osman because the gap is we need much more capacity building. And also we need some manual or guidelines. In Morocco, we are now have two experience to do carbon market transaction in ITMOS with Switzerland. I can mention that there is a project concerning energy efficiency in industry and the tourism. We are now in the phase of MAD, mitigation activity design document, and this process took us something like more than 2 years. And hopefully in March of COP27, the bilateral agreement will be signed with both Minister of Environment, both sides. I mean Switzerland and Morocco. So, as I said, time, there's a problem of time, maybe lack of experience. So we should have much more capacity building in this sense about Article 6, about MAD, and also about jurisdiction. Yeah. Here in Morocco, we're working on the climate change law that will deal with registry and will deal with the MRV and also national designated authority. So we have also with Switzerland another project concerning the organic waste to energy, and thank GGGI that they are involved, and also they are trying to give us the needed capacity building in this sense. And with GGI here in Morocco, we got quite a good training, but we need more. We need more. So the challenge is we have no more experience in this field, and also there is a negotiation still going on articles. So, but as we have seen in the experience from Thailand, here in Morocco, we definitely agree that private sector will be involved to do carbon trajectory in order to help us to reach our ambition, which is about 45, more than 45% by 2030. Also, NGOs. When I reached a workshop in Paris in the IIA, it was also a question of the NGOs that we involved, even in the voluntary market. So in all this, we need some guidelines, some manuals, and some capacity building. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abdelrani. And I'm just curious, do we have Madame Dussal, Madeleine, with us at this point? Yes. So over to, you. Merci beaucoup. OK, c'est à vous maintenant. Merci. It's over to you. Thank you.
OK, merci Lisa. Je vais aussi, merci pour cette invitation et merci pour...
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for your invitation and thank you for your presentation on the different instruments that can be used for the carbon pricing. I would like to share with you the actions that are done in Senegal. Mr. Ousmane has talked a bit about it, but in Senegal, we would like to reduce our emission up to 7%. And we are looking for strategies and international support to achieve this goal. And this reduction will concern some domains such as industry, waste management, forestry, and agriculture. As far as energy is concerned, we are also concerned by the waste. In Senegal, we have some experiences, we have big projects that have been achieved, and we have drawn some lessons. And we think that this Article 6 is important and has a more inclusive approach compared to the CDN. This approach invites the different stakeholders, such as the government, to participate, and we are obliged to invite the Ministry of Finance of Environment for some technical aspect, because there is a need to collaborate between these ministries. In Senegal, we have been involved in different initiatives with the Norway in the framework of DGI activities. And as far as the politics of this article is concerned, so we are more oriented toward renewable energy. And these are the 2 points on which we are working. So we are more concerned by renewable energy. We also have a bilateral agreement with Switzerland, with Japan. We are working with the World Bank. So you can see that these different initiatives are creating a lot of interest, a lot of opportunities, and this interest is toward the private sector, and we help us to reduce the carbon emission. And I think the Article 6 is very important. And to implement this article, we have to create an enable environment, and we have to define our goals to know how we can collaborate with the different stakeholders, how we can put in place an MRV system, and how we can involve the private sector that are also interested in the MRV project, how the transition can be done. We are also working with the enable environment to put in place. When I'm speaking about environment, I am speaking about the legislative framework that can help us to coordinate. And in this purpose, we are working with different partners, and we have enacted a law that is considering the Article 6, and we are working with the UNDP and the Switzerland collaboration, how we can implement this law. In Senegal, we are also trying to assess the potential that we have, the role of each stakeholder, and mainly those from the private sector that will play a fundamental role in the implementation of the Article 6. We are also trying to see how we can avoid the double checking, how we can collaborate with different ministries to have a good management of external financement, and to have a good MRV system. We are working on these different aspects with these different partners. Our aim is to have a coherence in our actions, and to support the startup to put in place their document to understand these different transactions for the implementation of the CDR. I can say that this requires a lot of coordination, and I would like to seize this opportunity to underline these two initiatives that help us to have a deep understanding of this article and to know more about how we can put in place strategies. We have some experience because we have worked with the NDP, and we can draw lessons from this experience and see how we can implement Article 6.
Il y a beaucoup de choses qui est arrivé, qui arrivent et qui vont arriver à Sénégal.
Thank you, Madeleine. There are many things that are happening and more to come. And now je vais me retourner.
Pragmatic implementation from a business perspective. Thank you, Jeff. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa, and good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you're dialing in from. And thanks to the GGGI and AITA for inviting me here. It's great to see so many familiar, friendly faces. I've loved listening to Maria and Malek and all the previous speakers. I've learned a lot today. And as the last speaker, and I think we're also over time, I better be brief. So certainly Article 6 is a fantastic idea, one that I personally believe in and the company I work for believes in very deeply. But my challenge, and I think many people would echo me in this, is that it's still very much an idea rather than a marketplace or a policy tool that we can see and that we can tap into and that we can start to make investments in. And given everything we know about the state of the planet and how very little years we have left in order to avoid a world above 2 degrees, we need to turn this idea into action as soon as possible. So I learned a lot from Maria's presentation about the SHIFT program in Thailand, but what concerns me is how long it's taken to develop that program. 1.5 to 2 years is way too long to develop a project if we anticipate that Article 6 is going to be a policy tool that can help deliver the Paris goals cost effectively. We're never going to get to the level of emission reductions and removals at scale if projects take on average 1 to 1.5 or even longer years as possible. That's simply not good enough. And of course, we need to work within the policy frameworks that every national government puts into place. But my call is for those frameworks to come into place and for Article 6 activities to be fast-tracked. So do whatever it takes in order to fast-track investment in any type of mitigation, be it a removal or a reduction, in order for these projects to go ahead faster than they normally would. We should be viewing Article 6 as a matter of national security, security to help protect vulnerable communities, vulnerable ecosystems. So whatever governments can do to fast track these projects, these lists of activities that could be eligible for Article 6 would be of the utmost importance. And certainly, I think what we're all struggling with when we talk about Article 6 is, where's the demand going to come from? Is it going to come from wealthy countries in Europe or North America, or is it going to come from the private sector? And I can speak from my personal experience that the private sector still grapples with the concept of offsetting. Offsetting is still very much a controversial topic to a lot of companies. They're under a lot of pressure from ESG ratings agencies, ESG investors to do anything but offset. So for example, the company that I work for, BP, we're following the mitigation hierarchy. We're doing everything we can not to use offsets because we believe that reducing emissions within our value chain should come first and offsetting should come later. But because of the pressure on companies to do anything but offset, that has a feedback loop towards the lack of demand for Article 6. So we lose demand from the private sector just when we're looking for more demand to come as a result of lack of demand from sovereign states in the so-called global north. So I would say another key thing that we all need to be doing as practitioners in this emerging international carbon market is to be explaining the benefits of why Article 6 should be part of an activity that large multinational organizations should consider to do as they embark on developing their decarbonization and net zero strategies. Certainly from where I sit in London, I sit in a building full of people with all kinds of decisions to make, and they're not hearing from the international voluntary carbon market community. They hear instead from investors, they hear from ESG ratings organizations, and the whole ESG community. That's what's driving decision-making in corporate boardrooms around whether or not to use offsets. So we don't hear enough of the critical voices like Madame Diouf or from Ousmane or from Monsieur Boucham around how Article 6 is helping decarbonize your respective countries and how this vital finance is necessary. And certainly in Europe today, we face an energy supply crisis. And a lot of European industry is going to be moving to North Africa and moving to the Gulf and moving to West Africa as well, because energy costs may be lower. And so a lot of offshoring of European industry will leave Europe and go towards your region over time. I believe this is going to be a result of high energy prices in Europe, which is a devastating outcome of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So as this industry comes towards your region, we need to be looking at how your governments could link that new investment that comes in with as much decarbonization activity as well. And here, Article 6 really comes into play. And we need to be thinking about this holistically. So as new industry comes into your countries, think about how you can encourage that inward investment in the most low carbon intense process as well. So I really think that these are some familiar foods for thoughts. I think we're in a very interesting time of transition away from the voluntary carbon market, project by project approach towards some type of sovereign carbon market. And that in of itself creates all kinds of questions, which we don't have enough time to discuss today. But I hope some of my thoughts were useful ways to think about the next discussion that we can hopefully have again together with the GGGI, AITA, and many others. Thank you again, Lisa and all, for having me today.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And I've been trying to answer some questions through the Q&A process, but one of the last points that you've made, I'd like to follow up on in particular, in that you're stating that you're not hearing as a global corporate that's trying to implement a mitigation hierarchy and do as much as possible to achieve the Paris goals, you're not hearing necessarily from the right voices in the countries like Senegal, like many of the other countries that are trying to implement those critical emission reduction activities, emission removal activities with scale, with financing, and with integrity. And I'm struck by the fact that GGGI is one of the platforms that provides for coordination, communication, and the ability to learn from each other and speak to each other in a more meaningful way. So with that as impetus, Jeff, let me thank you for that. And let me turn back with apologies to Fenella for not having more time for questions here. And great thanks to GGGI. Merci beaucoup tout le monde et à Madeleine et Ousmane. Merci beaucoup. J'espère que...
Thank you very much, everyone. Ousmane, Madame Diouf, I hope we'll hike like this from over to Fenella.
Thank you very much. And yeah, thank you so much to the panel. And I just want to give you a tiny story before I completely close. It's Jeff's fault we're all here. What Jeff may not remember is that he and I were at an aviation conference in London when he was working over in South Pole or AITA or somewhere. And we were talking in November 2018 about this e-motorbike project they were looking at in Thailand and how they had this fantastic thing. But it was really difficult because they went to the government and it kind of disappeared into a black hole in the government in Thailand. And I had been at GGGI for a few years then. And I said, look, governments don't deliberately put things in the bottom drawer. They put it aside and go, I have no idea what to do with it. You know what? GGGI is kind of in the right place to help on this. And I've known everybody in carbon for over 10 years. And that is truly how we started doing carbon at GGGI. So I'll be forever grateful, and I'm grateful again to you, Jeff, for your comments. You know, we've brought Usman, Madeleine, Mr. Boucham here. These are our members. These are the people we are here to help. These are the purpose of GGGI. And what I've heard here is, you know, we need to widen our platform. We need, as GGGI, to represent our members to a new audience. And this is the start. I think IETA and the BPMI is a fantastic idea to help get the voice of governments. Let us help represent our members to the ESG community and the corporates, and let you then do the corporate to corporate work. So it really has been fantastic. And I think, you know, the lessons learned, brilliant, Murray. This is the start. We want to see more and more and more lessons learned. We had Chris Shipley from the UK government and Marlin from the Norwegian government saying what we need is more lessons learned. This will bring the capacity that Usman, you've spoken about, Mr. Boucham has spoken about, the capacity building that's needed in the country. And the fast tracking, I mean, look, the team's kind of doing 18 hours a day already. So there's a limit to how much. We cannot and we don't want to force our member governments to move faster than they can. They need to consider all stakeholders. So that's particularly thinking about Malek's discussion paper for IETA. We need to take those views and we need to build those into an Article 6 strategy that we're writing for the government of Colombia and the government of Pakistan and the government of Senegal. That needs to be included in there so that it works, so that it's not just a strategy that sits there and is unusable by the private sector. So I'm really sorry, guys, but it does take a bit of time. We've been at this since 2019 and we want to go further. So, you know, let's hope. This was really such a fun session that was so informative, and I'd really like to thank IETA, South Pole, Shell, all the panelists, and, you know, let's do it again very, very soon. Thank you, everyone, and good night. We have one more session, which is aligning the voluntary market and the compliance smart and Article 6. Please do join us. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.